Hi, how's your dog doing? So we are back with another unscripted video. Fun. This one's even more unscripted than the last time. I feel like it's getting more and more so because the first time I had notes and an outline for the video. The next time I had some ideas, but not necessarily a guideline for them. And then now I just have some ideas I can say. Like just a few notes, not even like something more thought out or a graphic or anything. It's just a couple of ideas I wanted to talk about, not even all of them. Like I just have the ideas and then etc. or et cetera if you want to be more classical with your pronunciation. So as the title of this video would suggest, this is kind of going to be a video about focus. This is kind of going to be a video about focus or purpose. I also might turn this video into a scripted one, like once I get all my ideas out here, I might do that, because I feel like this is kind of a bigger topic that kind of should be its own more condensed video to explain the ideas, make it more concise and everything. But for now, it shall remain unscripted. So just to kind of introduce the topic and set our boundaries here, what I mean by purpose and focus, I'm going to mention a little bit about like the big stuff, like what's the purpose of my life? What am I doing here? That kind of thing a little bit, but not too much. That's kind of not what I'm talking about. It's more like the focuses or like your interests in life, that kind of thing, which definitely contributes to that, but it's not necessarily just that. This is like, what are the things that I do in my life, I guess, if that makes sense, and I'll probably elaborate more on that later, so please bear with me. So I guess we can like officially start talking about the topic, rather than just introducing it and such, which again, this does involve a little bit more clarification, but this is still kind of the topic itself. So by focuses, I also include something, I suppose it's along the lines of what do I need in my life? Not like people or material objects, but like what things, what ideas, what hobbies, what activities, that kind of thing. What kinds of those things do I need in my life to like continue on? Not necessarily like you're gonna be depressed if you don't do it, that kind of thing, but sort of, just like this is what my life needs, and for example, for myself, I've kind of figured out what that is. Now maybe that's gonna change a little bit, but there's still gonna be the things that they would change to. I'm pretty sure they'd be very related to these three things. At the moment, I can think of three things. Maybe there could be a little bit of subdivision and such to make it like 4, 5. Maybe I could expand it a little bit, but the three I 100% know I need are music, language, and philosophy. And for someone else, that could be like fishing, filmmaking, and botany. Like you don't know. It could be really anything for anyone else. Those are just the three things that I kind of focus on, and I'd assume that if you're watching this channel, you'd probably kind of share some of those interests, at least, maybe not these are your focuses in life, but you share these interests. So quite a bit of this will involve kind of my journey to getting here, and like kind of my journey to getting here and how I kind of figured this all out. So yeah. Okay, so to aid me with talking about this, I actually grabbed my journal. I do journal, not like a dear diary, this is what happened today type thing. It's more like a Marcus Aurelius, this is how to be a good person, reminders, aphorisms, dictums, stuff like that, like just things to keep me in check, to make sure I'm improving, to make sure things are going well. and also to express my thoughts on certain topics. Not just like any topic, it's mostly related to like my life and getting better. Like it's kind of for those kinds of topics, but I do have like a separate journal for just whatever random topics. Like if I have some philosophical idea I want to write down or something like that, I do have a journal for that as well. I have journals for everything, and I think you should too, because it's very helpful to getting your ideas down. But I guess this is also like its own kind of journal as well, because I'm just speaking and getting my ideas out. So yeah. Okay, so let's start talking about this. So first I want to start with like the ultimate purpose of your life. Now I know that might sound very big and important. It really doesn't have to be. Like, for example, what do I think the purpose of my life is? I find the purpose of my life to be to serve the common good, to help others, and pretty much all things I do that. I mean, some things I do like to improve myself, but it's kind of for that ultimate goal of being able to help people. Like this YouTube channel, I want to provide education and ideas to people. That's how I want to help people with this YouTube channel. Financially, I think it's pretty obvious people want to make money to provide for family and friends, and if you have even a little bit more, you can be a little more philanthropic. But my ultimate goal is to help those around me, because not because I want to have a legacy or something like that, but just because I feel that's a worthwhile thing doing. It's just something that I feel should be done. I think it's a part of human nature to want to do that. So I feel like that's also part of like reaching my essence as a human being. Because as much as we want to believe that we are these blank slates or whatever that can do whatever we want, choose to be whatever we want, there is an inherent nature within humanity, and it does take work to rid ourselves of that nature. Or maybe we just didn't have it in the first place, but it's general to all humans. Like, for example, generosity is something that most people exhibit, at least to some degree, and it either takes conscious effort to not be that way, or some environmental factor occurs, or somehow you're just born not like that. Like, it's very uncommon, But enough about that. So these smaller purposes or focuses can and probably will feed into that in some way. They'll probably aid or be constituents of that larger purpose, And that's probably the most we will talk about, having a larger purpose for your life. For the rest of that, we'll talk about focuses and like what you want to do with your life, like on a daily basis, that kind of thing. So how do you find your focus or your purpose, or like your many purposes, your many focuses, that kind of thing? The best way it can reveal itself to you is that it will come back over and over and over again. Like, there's one way of looking at these focuses and purposes, which is that they're things that, like, you think about, you go through that journey might take months and years, and then you're just kind of done. You keep it with you, but like the main part of it is done. Well, I do agree that can happen. I don't necessarily think that's how it has to be, and it certainly can be different for other people, if you ask me. And I'll get to that in a second. But for example, those 3 topics I talked about, philosophy, language, and music, those have been things that have consistently come about in my life. Like, I have many times I've had like months, weeks, not really years, mostly months, months, where that thing has been my focus. That's been what I'm thinking about. That's what I'm thinking about going to school. That's what I'm thinking about at home. That's what I'll be doing at home. That's what I'll be thinking about when I'm somewhere else where I don't want to be, that kind of thing. Like, that is my obsession. But then I work through it, and I'm kind of done for a little bit, and I move on to the next thing. And then I'll come back to it at some point. So, for example, right now, I think of those focuses, the one that's like the most, that sticks out the most to me is probably music. I think I'm going to go through like a whole music, not a phase, but like a whole music section of my life for a while. I'm going to probably learn more music theory, focus on instruments more, that kind of thing, probably develop my skills as a musician. And that does not mean I'm going to like step away from this channel. This channel is just kind of like, it's a constant, something that's going to always be there. This is just kind of a focus for my free time. Like I do this channel in my free time and I do enjoy it, but I do kind of see this as a form of working because I do eventually plan to, make money from this. Not that that's what I set out to do. I do this for fun, but it's always nice to have that goal in mind and to have something to do with this later on so that, people aren't like, why do you do YouTube? Yeah, I do plan to eventually make money from this, hopefully, if I get there. Maybe there have been times in your life where you're like, I am completely dedicated to swimming. I want to learn everything there is. I want to get better about it. And that's been your entire focus in life for months and weeks and months. Maybe move on to the next thing. And that next thing does not necessarily have to be one of your core focuses / purposes. It can be something else. It can be something that you try for a little bit. And now that I'm here thinking about it, unscripted again, there might even be secondary purposes that might pop up less frequently. Like, for example, I have had times where I've wanted to get into writing. That's been a thing that's occurred. Like once every year, 2 years, something like that, I will have a renewed interest in writing. And I think that renewed interest in writing is coming back. Now, maybe this won't be the primary focus of my life for the next few months or something like that. But I think it will be something that I will focus on for a while. And maybe you might even have a focus like for the day or for the week. Normally I think of this as being a more long-term thing, like a few weeks, a few months, maybe in a few years, then it'll come back later. But it might even be for the day. Like maybe one day you just wake up and you think, I really want to learn more about cars today. It can be a one-day thing, honestly. And so let's say you discovered one of your focuses and you can tell it's coming back. What do you do with that? Now you're going to go into, to steal a term from self-improvement YouTubers, you're going to go into monk mode, where pretty much that is your main focus and that's all, you're just learning about it or executing it. That's kind of like your life for a couple of months. Now this is kind of more like a short-term one. It can be a longer-term one. It can be 6 months. It can be 12 months, but not necessarily. I'd say it at least has to be like a month for this to be like the mini monk mode I'm talking about. And I'm sure, hopefully we are kind of on the same page here. Like that's kind of your focus. You eat, go to school or work, whatever you do, you talk to family and friends and whatnot. And then like this is kind of your focus outside of that, I mean, you can do other things too. Like you can do other hobbies you enjoy. But like, this is kind of like your focus. This is the thing that you're thinking about a lot, This is the thing where if you're really bored somewhere else, this is probably what you're thinking about, And I've kind of noticed in my own experience that I have had these dormant periods, which tend to coincide with the school year. So these dormant periods, that's kind of like where you're gathering knowledge, and not necessarily just on one topic. It can be like on all your focuses, but like that's the building up that people don't see. That's the part of the iceberg people don't see. That's the build up to what I'd call an explosive moment or explosive period or a burst of growth, something like that. Which for me, because school, that tends to happen during the summer for me. So I have the most free time. That's when all this stuff just comes bursting out, and that's when everyone sees what I've been doing. Not everyone, obviously, but this one, like the people around me kind of see what I've been doing. Like, for example, by the time the summer came around, this past summer came around, that's when I really got into composing, another aspect of music, and that's when I started like having all these compositions to show people. That's when people started thinking of thinking of part of my identity as a composer rather than just a musician, you know? Like that was something people didn't think of me as beforehand. It kind of updated. So after the burst of growth, that's kind of when your identity will reset or update to catch up with who you are now and what you've been doing. So during the dormant periods, essentially, you kind of seem the same to everyone else. No one sees the stuff that you're building up on, that you're growing upon while you're in those dormant periods. They just see you from your last explosive period. When that explosive period comes, that's when everything comes bursting out, and you do all this stuff. You know, you make these big improvements in those areas, and then everything resets, or your identity catches up. It updates with you to reflect how you are now. And then other people will slowly update to see you that way as well. Because, you know, day to day, people don't really see that many changes in you, you know. Like people kind of constrain. I don't want to get like too off topic, but this is kind of similar to I can never pronounce his name. But that's similar to his idea of people being hell, which people just interpret to mean like, oh, people are so terrible. But no, it's really the idea that someone's interpretation of you is a fixed version. So like when you die, you can't change how people see you, and that's just stuck like that forever. You know, like they'll never know the truth. They'll never know the truth. You know what I mean? Like that version of you that they have is stuck in their minds, and it's like that forever, and it's never going to change because you can't do anything about it because you're dead. So we need to, you know, being alive is great because we can still do those little things to change people's perceptions about us and such. Now that's kind of an oversimplification a little bit, but that's kind of the gist of what I'm saying. And what Sash, I can't say his name. I can never say his name correctly, but that's kind of the point of what he was saying. So people are not going to see you as a completely different person while you're gaining this knowledge or like revving up for the explosive periods. People are not going to see that. They're not going to see you change that much. So the best way you can do this is to kind of, honestly, is to kind of just disappear from everyone and just kind of back away from everyone else. Not like completely, like still talk to your friends, still talk to your family members, still talk to your partners, still keep your relationships, obviously. But just, you know, other than that, focus on other stuff. You know, not saying to be a recluse or to be a hermit, but just kind of don't really interact with the outside world as much. Because that's when you're doing all this stuff, so everything updates, so when people see you again, it's updated a little bit. Another example is that before this past year, I was not someone who went to the gym. I was not someone who exercised. Now, that's part of who I am. Now people see me as someone who does exercise and does go to the gym and does try to make muscle and, you know, that kind of thing. I do it partially for looks. I mean, it's shallow, sure, but everyone's shallow in some way. And also because it's healthy, and exercising does increase your cognitive capabilities. That's been shown. That's why schools in South Korea, I believe, if I'm correct, I think it was South Korea, they've added like an extra hour to the school day for exercise so that their students can learn better, because after you exercise, that's when you learn best, because your brain's diverting all your energy to your mind to learn things, because like in the wild, you know, that's when you need to learn things the most. That's not the point I'm making. That's not the important part. But before that, now everything has changed as part of who I am. So the bursts of growth, the explosive periods, you want to do as much as you can, and probably in as many focuses as you can get to, because this is your chance. This is your time to make big changes. This is kind of like, think about it this way. After this is how people will see you until the next one, and you don't know when that could be. Now, since I'm a student. That's a little, like, I can kind of tell when it's going to happen in summer, because that's when I'm kind of away from people. I can focus on these things more and more and more. But if you have a job, you never know when that's going to be. That could be during your vacation. You never know. And these explosive periods don't have to be like you do something. Like, like if you learn about, let's say you learn a lot about running. I'm not telling you that means you have to go do 16 marathons or 12 triathlons or something. That's not what I'm telling you to do. I'm not necessarily saying you have to do something that entire time, but just make improvements. Because if you get into this because ideally you'd want to be in that explosive period, but not really, because that's when you're just using all the knowledge and stuff you've gained over the dormant periods. Like, you're not really adding much. Like, you can add some, but you're not adding much. You're not adding many new things to what you already have. This is just using it. This is the usage, not the gathering of knowledge. And so I don't have much time to record this still. So I'm kind of ending. I'm also kind of running out of things to say. But if you get into this cycle of dormant period, explosive period with your focuses, and you find out what those are, you will make great improvements with your focuses, and you can probably do something with them later on. Because a lot of people maybe they have focuses, but they just don't even realize them, and they don't go pursue them. Like, maybe you don't want to use them to, like, do your work with them or something like that, but it still enriches your life. It still makes your life better. Doing this will make great improvements in your life. So this, combined with the last video of having a system with a plan, this is having a system and a plan and knowledge. This is one way, not one way, but this is a way of going about that for your focuses and your purposes. This system of dormant, explosive, that's something you think about. This kind of just happens naturally. So this is your system and the knowledge. You have this knowledge out there. This is what happens. So be cognizant of what your focuses are. See what things keep on popping up in your life. See what things you want to focus on in your life. And then from there, you can follow this system, you can follow this plan, and you will see great results in your life later on. So that's all I really have to say. Again, tell me if you want more of these unscripted videos or fewer of them. Again, this is just how it is. So just let me know. I don't really have much else to say. Sorry this video is late. I was lazy when it came to choosing a topic and finally recording it. So that's why this video is 1 to 2 weeks late, I believe. So other than that, that's all. Tell your dog I said hi.